personality creates your personal reality.
Authentic power is when your personality comes to serve the energy of your soul.
The truth is the body is one ecosystem. You can get to the root cause and everything goes away.
Thank you for tuning in to the Reconditioned podcast. I'm Vaknine. I'm a health writer and holistic wellness coach. And my own journey from disability to remission taught me that wellness through a mind-body approach can take time when we don't know where to begin. And that's why I created this podcast, to bring you the answers to all your well-being questions in the most accessible way possible. Whether you're suffering from chronic illness, raising children in a world of conflicting information, or you simply want to feel empowered and motivated to become the best version of yourself, join me along with expert guests as we uncover the most actionable ways to recondition ourselves back to wellness. This episode of Reconditioned is sponsored by Wild Refill. Utilising the power of nature, they have created an effective, long-lasting and cruelty-free deodorant that is free from aluminium and parabens. Head over to wearewild.com where you'll get 20% off your first order when you use the code CONDITION at checkout. That's CONDITION, all in caps. Thank you to We Are Wild. Hello everyone, welcome back to Reconditioned with me, Vaknine. Today's episode, I am so excited for you to hear. As most of you probably know, I am really passionate about birth and informed choice in birth, and about women really knowing all their options and being able to come to an informed choice when it comes to every aspect of their pregnancy and their birth, and also in how to feel supported in the postpartum period in the 4th trimester. So Sara Cosendai, who was our guest today, who happens to be the wife of Leo Cosendai, who we had on the show a few weeks ago, which is amazing because what a power couple. They're both healers and both doing so much to help people. She is pretty amazing. She trained under some of the world's leading pioneers in positive births, like Gauri Mota, who we had on the show last season, and Yehudi Gordon, and some really incredible people. And her story is really interesting as well, and how she came to it. And she has created a kind of model and a package and a real niche based on all her qualifications, which you'll hear about in the show. And from that has created this thing where women, she's like a pregnancy, birth and beyond support system for mothers, coach, if you like. And it's a real niche that's needed because, you know, as we touched on in the episode, we don't have that village mentality anymore. We don't live in the village where people are helping us raise our children. We are just mothers expected to give birth and get on with it regardless of what happened in the birth. So what she offers is truly revolutionary in my eyes, and she offers some really great insights on how we can all come to informed choice for pregnancy and birth and beyond. And she gives us tips and things we can do during pregnancy and postpartum to help keep us healthier and happier, and to help us make the right decisions during that time. The intention for the episode was mother nurture, pregnancy, birth and beyond, and to really give you guys all the information that we felt would be the most helpful for women who are expecting or thinking about having a baby. And she offers just really great information, and I think you guys are going to love this. If you are anywhere near having a baby, even if you're thinking about it, this episode will do you so much good because it will instill those seeds, it will sow those seeds that will help you to have a more positive experience. So without further ado, let's get started with the episode. This week I speak to one of the UK's top holistic female health experts, Sara Cosendai. Sara is a naturopathic nutritionist, clinical aromatherapist, doula, prenatal yoga teacher and Kundalini teacher. She is also wife to Leo Cosendai, who we spoke to on episode 27. What Sara does is truly magical because in blending all her qualifications and passions, she has found a way to support women during the most transformational time in their lives to ensure a smooth trip from preconception right through to motherhood and beyond. So Sara, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. I'm so grateful to you. You have so much knowledge and so much to teach us. I'm hugely passionate about informed choice in birth and parenting. So what you do is really important to me, and it feels very niche because not many women know about these kind of services. And I love what you've created in your business in a way to support women. So I always like to start with how you came to be doing what you do. And I know your story starts in 1980s London, surrounded by some pretty amazing people. So I'd love you to just take us back there.
Yeah, I think there must have been some kind of inspiration being surrounded by quite a few of the pioneers of the active birth movement. So my parents' house backed onto a communal garden in Little Venice, and there'd be Lolly Sturck teaching pregnancy yoga, Peter Walker, who is known for developmental massage. He also lived around the garden. And so I was probably about 5 or 6 at the time, so my mum kind of missed having me with those kind of philosophies, but I kind of watched all of the mothers using these with their little ones, and it was just really magical, and everyone just learnt from one another. The mothers were sharing homeopathic remedies, some were training as homeopaths, there were people doing yoga all the time, there were people doing Tai Chi, there were lots of people with music, so it was like a kind of a combination of many different, ways of thinking, and it just all kind of congregated into a magic thing of sharing amongst adults and children. And the little ones just always seemed to be drawn to me. So the mothers would just used to come and leave their little ones with me, and they'd be like, "Oh, I'm just going to be over there, but the little one wants to play with you." But it was just really sweet. It was just really organic. So I think that's how it all started. And I think my mum, before having me, she had a really tricky time, kind of women's health wise, and she wasn't supported by medicine, so she kind of knew that there were other avenues that she wanted to explore to support herself, and that's what she took into my childhood and my brother's childhood, to kind of see that, pretty much like knowing that there were other, there must be other ways to support the health, and obviously there's Chinese medicine and Ayurveda, those things are very much normal part of life, but in the West in those times it wasn't classed as something that was normal, so lots of people were investigating and exploring.
Sounds like a pretty idyllic way to grow up. I mean, it almost sounds like a commune of sorts.
I know it did. When I look back on it, I'm just like going, it was really crazy, just like how everyone just kind of gathered. And I remember hearing mothers talking about their birth stories. It just kind of, I must have been about 7 or 8, and I'd be like, oh my goodness, that sounds quite full on. And as an 80-year-old kind of processing those things, but I feel really lucky to have been exposed to hearing about lots of different things from a really young age.
I think that's so profound, actually, because one thing I learned through hypnobirthing and through kind of just, birth education was that we don't even realize how programmed we are to believe that birth is traumatic and needs to be traumatic. And when I started realizing that, it was quite kind of a light bulb moment, because I was like, everything from watching Friends and seeing Rachel screaming in pain to, soap operas, and you never just see someone's just having a peaceful birth, or someone realizes they go into labor and then, it's a nice kind of peaceful transition. We never see that. Ever. So as children, unless you have a mother or a community who are talking to you about birth in a really positive way, and I think that definitely impacted me, because my mum never talked about my birth or my sister's birth as being traumatic. She was just like, oh yeah, it was birth. I didn't have any pain relief, and it was okay, and it was fine. And I don't think even she was in the mindset that we're in of, kind of actively trying to make yourself fine. She was just fine. So wherever it came from, I wasn't given that conditioning of birth needs to be traumatic. So I think that obviously shapes women.
It does. My mum used to speak to me about my birth, and she hadn't been well before she had me, so I was induced on my due date. But for example, my mum's experience with an induction was actually a really positive experience. She said, she was just really relaxed. She didn't feel any fear. And I was born, I think like 5 or 6 hours.
Wow.
And it was
You don't hear that often with induction.
No. And so when I have mothers come to me and they think they maybe have an induction, I'm like, I know there's lots of talk about the cascade of intervention, and of course, maybe that is in some cases, but it's not every case. And I think it's really important for women, when there is birth education, that there isn't a kind of like this fear instilled about this is good and this is bad. And I think that's the combination of philosophies that I bring together. I have women come to me, it's not just about natural birth. Some mothers come to me and they know that they want to have a C-section. It's about embracing every sense, kind of not making anyone feel that they're making a bad choice. They're making informed choices.
Well, that's exactly the thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And just supporting them with what their choices are, that it's not, that's what's right for them. We don't know what, people's previous experience has been and what shaped their beliefs. And I think it's really important for a woman to feel supported in how she feels and not to feel that she's judged.
Absolutely. And that's my biggest thing in life, informed choice. Whatever decision you want to make when it comes to healthcare, birth, make that decision, but make it from a place of informed choice where you haven't just been told what to do by a healthcare professional, and based on the fact that they're a healthcare professional, we believe that they must be right and know everything, because they're only human and they don't know everything. And it's up to us to do the research. And, a friend of mine at the moment, she had a very traumatic birth first time round. And she has done a heap of research and decided to have an elective cesarean now second time round, because from all the research she's done, the issue she had first time round is likely to happen again. And the likelihood of it happening and she really suffered afterwards from the trauma of the birth. And I think what that would do to her moving forward is not, you weigh up the risks against the benefits. And for her, she really wants a positive breastfeeding journey, which if she's too traumatized, that might not happen. So she's come from a real place of informed choice. And I have so much respect for that.
Yeah. And also, like your friend making that choice, she knows what her experience was the first time. There are other aspects of motherhood and enjoying those first few days, and then not feeling like you're fearing your whole pregnancy. I think that's really important for some women. They make the choice to have a C-section because there is a lot of fear there, and it's not up to me to decide, or anyone to decide, what their process of dealing with those issues are. It's about the mother and the baby, and if they're going to have, that's going to be the most positive journey for them, and it's a love that a mother and baby share. That's what's the most important thing.
Yeah, I agree. Although there are ways, I think I've known many women who have got pregnant and had a lot of fear surrounding birth, and then felt better about it and felt more positive after they've done hypnobirthing or worked with a doula.
Definitely, yeah.
And then they have great births.
Yes.
I know a few women like that. So I do think that coming to it, and saying, okay, no, I'm scared and that's it, and so I'm going to have a C-section, that I think there are also ways around that fear. And again, it's about making the right choice for you and all the nuances that make up your story.
Yeah, and there's some mothers I have who say, no, I really want to have a C-section. They end up wanting to have a home birth by the end of it. But again, that's been their own personal journey. And it's about, again, choosing what's right for you.
So tell me about everything you offer, because you've created something that's pretty niche and bespoke in what you offer women. But it was a niche that was really needed. So I'd love to hear about exactly what happens in your coaching and what it's all about. Yeah,
so I've been lucky enough to work with a lot of the pioneers of the active birth unit, from Dr. Huda Gordon, Dr. Gary Mother, in Kundalini prenatal, Gurmukh, Peter Walker. So I've worked with a lot of and studied and apprenticed with a lot of these amazing teachers. And I think my biggest teachers, I always say, are the mothers, because you can learn all these philosophies, but the reality is how does a woman feel during it? So a lot of what I've kind of developed and shaped is all been through what the mothers have told me, like how they're feeling, what their experiences have been. And then I treat women from all different cultures, and it's amazing. Then you hear the different traditions, the grandmothers and the babushkas and all the different people. They kind of all bring these amazing pieces of knowledge. So like whenever I get to meet the grandparents and the great grandparents and things like that, I'm like going, well, what did you do? What were your traditions? So I've kind of shaped this pregnancy model through, I use body work, I'm a naturopathic nutritionist. And so it's bringing all of those things together along with maybe some kriyas from Kundalini. So I use those not like a class, but kind of prescriptively, when a mother feels maybe vulnerable and like her spaces are being invaded by people's opinions. There's great different Kundalini kriyas to kind of create your own bubble, because it's all about kind of creating your own bubble. And the things that we work together with the mothers is just that they feel empowered and they feel strong and they feel good. And there seems to be a really bizarre kind of mentality that everybody's just like so ready to give you an opinion when you're pregnant, whereas most other cases, people, you're just like, it's like a free for all, and you're just like, actually it's none of your business. And mothers kind of come to me and they're like going, really astounded with some of the things people have said. So it's all about kind of how does a mother feel, and giving her tools to feel empowered all the way through. So through her diet, I refer people to different hypnobirthing, acupuncturists, and then also diagnostics as well. So I work heavily with the endocrine system because that's something that's always overlooked, in pregnancy, which again, I find incredibly bizarre. The thyroid, the adrenals, they all need to be looked after all the way through pregnancy to postpartum. So how I look at, the health of a woman is, right from fertility. So I treat women on their fertility journey, whether it's, natural conception, IVF, IUI, egg donor, sperm donor, whatever, all the way through into motherhood. And it is one continual journey. It's not just like, it's 6 weeks, you're signed off and that's it, you're fine. I mean, that's often like really the beginning where women need extra help, extra support. And it's not always a time, not everybody has such varying energy levels. And not everybody has time to do all the research. So I'm kind of like taking, all that work out because of the experience I have to kind of guide women. Have you thought about this? Well, let's do this, let's make it easy for you. And it's about having, an extra brain.
Which is so lovely.
Yeah.
Because, there's so much to think about, isn't there, when you're pregnant? And it's so nice to know that there's someone there thinking about those things for you and giving you all the options and the answers.
Yeah, well, for most women, I don't know how it was for you, but they say to me, it's a miracle they managed to get up and clean their teeth in the morning. So, how you're supposed to like do a whole load of research. I'm like working with mothers, like how to improve their milk production or how to adjust maybe their diet. So, it helps with the baby's digestion through less gassy foods and other galacticals, all sorts of things. So it's kind of bringing all different philosophies together, a bit of homeopathy, a bit of herbal medicine, all the things that are safe for mother and baby. And then obviously there are things that you can adjust when mothers then stop breastfeeding and then preparing for going back to work. So it's literally the whole spectrum of motherhood.
So you're just kind of like a coach for like a motherhood coach almost. It's amazing. How often how many sessions would people have, or how often would they speak to you? Or that varies depending on the service they need?
Yeah, I mean, I have some mothers who will see me every week. I have some people who will see me every month. Some people check in with me every quarter. So it's very different, whatever anyone feels they need. But definitely in pregnancy, kind of a more frequent basis, because obviously the body is constantly evolving and changing. And it's also a time, to just stop and, feel like you can connect with your baby. Obviously, I have mothers when they have it's on their second or third baby. And they often say they don't even feel that they have time to actually acknowledge their pregnancy because they're so busy with the other children or busy working. And this is a time for them just to kind of be still and be focused on, on themselves and, feel that they're giving back and nurturing themselves, which I think is, really important and something that is missing in motherhood because, you're always giving so much as a mother and your brain never switches off to that giving. It's just like, it just always comes from the heart, with a mother. And with the things with the adrenals and the thyroid, it's so important that women, have that care, which is it's such a pity that our medical healthcare model doesn't, address that. Obviously, it'd be a very difficult thing to do, but I think it would support women's health much further down the line when other things develop with, hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, all those sorts of things. I think so much could be avoided, but,
Why don't they support those things? And what can it, what things can, conditions can arise because of it? Because obviously the adrenals, the thyroid, these are, huge things that essentially carry our system.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I think I'm always amazed when, this is before I did my training as a naturopathic nutritionist, and I would say to mothers, your thyroid is really important. Can you ask your doctor to have your, thyroid levels checked? And doctors quite often wouldn't be willing, to do it. And they'd say, oh, well, you're just tired because you're a new mother. And it's just like, it's kind of saying, well, those things have an impact on the endocrine system, so therefore things will develop. And so I think our modern
medicine, not just because you're a new mother, it's you're a new mother, so this thing will impact your endocrine system, and therefore it's important that you keep on top of it.
Yeah, and they're saying that the issue with hypothyroidism, it can develop like 3 years. It can be kind of slowly kind of dripping away, and then it's like at 3 years postpartum, then things really kick off. And it's about how do we avoid that? How do we kind of start caring at the root, caring from pregnancy, from early motherhood, so that mothers don't have to feel rubbish, because it's just like, I don't think it is acceptable that women are just told, well, that's how it is. I think there is so much more, that can be done. And, in other cultures, we're not a culture where people have confinement nurses, and obviously it's expensive to have those kinds of things. But in other cultures, there are confinement nurses who will make certain broths with seaweeds and things. I had a mother, this is probably kind of 12, 13 years ago, and she used to have a confinement nurse, a Korean confinement nurse, and she would have all these amazing broths made with the seaweeds, which are now very, very popular now. And she would be doing vaginal steaming. She used to have this thing that looked like a facial steamer that she'd sit on with all the herbs, and she was just like, and all these things. It was just like incredible, like the care that was given to the body in recovery, and then how strong she would feel afterwards. And if that was given to every woman, I mean, I just think it would be so different.
It comes back to that whole thing, which I often say, which is that we are, social beings who evolved to kind of have that village mentality, and the whole thing, if it takes a village to raise a child, it still takes a village to raise a child, but we no longer have that village.
Absolutely.
So women are expected to do it all on their own, have the baby, and it doesn't matter how, even women who have C-sections, if you were to go in for any other major surgery where they open you up, no one would expect you to be doing anything for a few weeks afterwards. And yet you have a C-section, and if you're in an NHS hospital and you've had, you're just put on a ward and given your baby, and that's it, and you've got no help. And, there are some amazing midwives out there, but in terms of how the system operates, it doesn't operate to allow for this village mentality, which actually is what every single woman and every family needs, because I feel like the men benefit from that too, or the partners, because they're tired as well, with a newborn baby. And, if they are hands-on and they are, partners that are helping a lot, they feel like they need that support as well. And I think, we're really lacking something in the society from not giving women this postpartum care that they deserve. And I know from my Indian friends, most of my Indian friends, either if they live with their parents or their mum will move in with them for 4 weeks after they give birth. And, do all that stuff, cook for them and make all kind of the Ayurvedic teas and broths. And these women are coming out of it much stronger.
Yeah, I mean, when my mum had me in the 70s, like, this is on the NHS, she was kept in for a whole week. And the mothers who had delivered at the same time were all kept together. So there was, I think, a ward of like 6 women. And each day they had physio, they had classes on breastfeeding, how to bath their babies and everything. And then we were all taken away in the afternoon. The mothers were told to rest, or, there was so much care. And this was for a week.
That sounds like you were in like Ina May's little commune or something.
It was just, but this is at St Mary's in Paddington. I mean, this is just like, it was incredible. But then 4 years later, when my mum had my brother, it was totally different. So there was a time when things were done. Yeah, I think, all these things, it's down to funding. And, my father is always outraged at the way that women are treated, about how, the lack of care with the, maternity leave and things like that. And he's just like going, if this was men giving birth, this would never happen. And I think he's always
nice that it's coming from your dad.
Yeah. And he's always like, he said, I just can't, but, even in the news now, like with all these mummies who can't have their partners kind of going with them. There's an amazing lady who runs a foundation called Pregnant Then Screwed, and she's been really fighting the corner for women to get their support. But like my dad has been kind of like going like, how can they kind of open the pubs and then women can't have their partners with them in labour? I mean, it's just like there's some kind of discrepancy with the thought process.
Yes, especially when groups are allowed to meet for pheasant shooting.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
No, it is infuriating. It's absolutely infuriating. And what's more infuriating about it, which always gets me, is that the most disadvantaged people will always suffer because of that.
Yes.
Because for those of us who are fortunate to hire a doula or a private lactation consultant and put support in place, that's great. But what about the people who can't afford that, who go into a hospital, who have no means of hiring a lactation consultant or having any sort of support, maybe single mothers who lack all support? Where are they ending up?
I know.
Psychologically,
Exactly. And I just think that, from without kind of getting political, from a society perspective, if these mothers were supported, how it would make them feel, how it would help with the early childhood. There was I don't know if you remember, there was I don't know if it was a foundation or something, but there was a incentive called, was it Sure Start, where there were free classes with baby massage and things for mothers at local centres, and they took all the funding away from that. And it's just, I just think if motherhood was addressed, if the care was given, if the basic things like, even iron and like the thyroid for, the thyroid affects, your mood, your mental state postpartum. In some cases, yes, there are different degrees of postpartum depression, but, if they looked at the thyroid, lots of those things could be supported. So at least women feel like they've got the mental strength kind of to deal with this, because it takes a lot of grit to being a mother, on your own in those early days. Absolutely. And to not even have the basics of like, these are the foundations to how your body functions, if they're not checked, just doesn't make sense.
So yeah, absolutely. We've focused a lot on kind of what isn't available because it's important to know your choices and your options. Yes. But let's flip that around a bit and make it a bit more positive. And what is available? What can women ask for? What things should they know to ask? And what things can they do on their own that would improve birth and postpartum?
Well, I just think even the simple things like, there are, especially at the moment for women with lockdown and things, just even, the Gentle Birth Method book, I think there's some great literature coming out, supporting mothers, which are kind of, is not so old fashioned. So I think there's a lot of literature out there. There's some great apps that mothers can listen to if they can't get to, a hypnosis class. There's one called Expectful, which is really great. And so there are lots of things mothers, can do like that. I mean, I don't know what you came across that was available.
Well, things like Ina May's Guide to Childbirth. For me, that was the first thing. That book changed everything for me. And Grantley Dick reads the history of the fear of childbirth. Those things really changed. And then meeting my hypnobirthing instructor and doula, Danny, who we had on this podcast as well. And all the information she taught me, and just kind of understanding that fear is a choice, and my body was built to do. My body was literally created to do this. Yes, as a woman and as a human being, I can choose all the other things I want to do with this human experience. But in terms of evolution, as a woman, my body was created in order to be able to know how to give birth, And that simple affirmation of my body knows how to birth this baby just as my body knows how to grow this baby. And it's true, you know, you're not sitting there all the time while you're pregnant thinking, right, is my baby getting this? Is the placenta doing this? The baby just grows. Yes, we look after ourselves, and it's important to eat right and, you know, have the, you know, healthy lifestyles during pregnancy. But essentially it was understanding that was the biggest thing for me. And then arming myself with knowledge about all the things that were going to be asked of me, you know, from the medical profession or told that I needed to do, and arming myself with the knowledge of do I or do I not want to do these things, and knowing my reasons for them.
Yeah, I think this is why women come to me, because I kind of give them, I've digested all the different, so I digest all the literature, and I'm kind of like, and every mother's, you know, has a different need or a different way she's approaching birth, and I kind of tailor everything to how that mother's, you know, what the mother's perspective is, and maybe kind of give her some other things that maybe she hasn't thought of. So working through body work and through knowledge empowerment and yeah, what suits her. So like, there are obviously different yoga teachers in London, so like different styles would suit different people. So it's about trying to fit everything together. And also I know all the blood tests, when to ask for them and things like that. So it's just guiding women, going, you know, this is maybe something to think about, knowing that you can, even though Strep B is not offered, that I can get at mothers to have their Strep B done or things like that. It's all of those things where it is about having knowledge, which gives you the power and gives you the kind of confidence of knowing, you know, what to ask for. Do you want delayed cord clamping and things like that? Things that, you know, sometimes, some people know about it, some people don't. And about if you're going to have a C-section, you know, you can again have delayed cord clamping, then that you can have a gentle C-section. You know, the baby can be put straight on your chest. The baby can kind of wriggle from the incision. So there's like, it's kind of knowing what is available and kind of having an understanding. I mean, I'm London based, but, you know, I kind of give mothers knowledge as much as I can, and also will give them little seeds for them to then kind of maybe go and explore themselves.
One of the recommendations I get asked for the most is deodorants, because most of us are aware of the detrimental health effects some conventional deodorants can have. It used to be hard to give an answer because so many of the natural deodorants available didn't actually work. But now I use Wild Refill, and I love it because it's free from aluminium and parabens, it's cruelty-free, and it actually genuinely works. And I'm not just saying this because they sponsor the podcast. They sponsor the podcast because I use the product and love it. It's also really fun because you get to choose a colour for your applicator, which is a genius sustainable design that you keep for life. Then you get to customise your order by selecting from their different gorgeous scent combinations, all biodegradable and recyclable, for your refills. I know those of you who are listening are conscious about what you put in and on your body, so if you're ready for a natural, environmentally friendly deodorant that actually works, visit wearewild.com, where you'll get 20% off your first order when you use the code CONDITION, that's CONDITION, all in caps, at checkout. That's wearewild.com and code CONDITION. Thank you to We Are Wild. I just think it's so powerful. There's nothing more powerful than informing yourself with all the knowledge, you know, and I just think that so many births can be improved in terms of how the mother feels about it, from having that knowledge.
Yeah, this is how you're saying, you know, it takes a village, and that's how it was. It was the village mentality even during pregnancy. You know, the older women would kind of have all this knowledge, and they would take care of the women during, you know, the pregnancy, you know, process, and make sure in the kind of the last month that she's really nurtured, kind of going almost like a pre, you know, have the 40 days postpartum, but it's like almost like the 40 days pre-birth, you know, how she would be nurtured and nourished to kind of have the strength and the vitality, you know, for birth as well. And I think it's knowing that it's okay. I think we're so used to kind of rushing around and being busy. And I think sometimes it's needed, I'm sure like your doula as well, just say like, it's okay to sometimes slow down. It's okay to take time, you know, for yourself just to sit and think and breathe. And I think, you know, that's the easiest thing. Just I always, there's the Japanese, was it tree bathing? So that's like, again, like a really
Forest
simple thing.
bathing.
Forest bathing. Just like you just want to
Yeah.
kind of be in nature, go and put your back
Yes.
against a tree, just feel rooted and feel the magnificence of nature. I think all of those things, you're growing an amazing, growing a human being. It's like a big, takes a lot of work, and it's like okay to just kind of take it easy sometimes.
Absolutely. I just, I think that definitely gets lost because we just, a lot of these Eastern cultures and, other cultures that we see who really support women through pregnancy and beyond, I just think it's so lovely. And then what tends to have happened in the Western world is that as medicine evolved, people assumed that they, everything that they were being told by doctors was the best and what they needed to know. And so many things got lost along the way, so many lessons that could have been passed down through these generations. Like I think kind of in my great-grandmother's era, they would have had all that. And then by the time kind of my grandmother had my mum, it was very much becoming a lot more medicalized, and formula was available. And because this thing was available, that generation were very much like, well, you don't need to use your body anymore. Give the formula. As opposed to it coming from, right, let's make a choice based on all the information that we have. So it is a shame. But I also think, on a positive note, that we are coming back round to this. Like, so many of us are really kind of revisiting those Eastern cultures, and look at how London is now, look at how the world is now in terms of things that are available, yoga and meditation and juice bars and all these things that can be seen as a bit hippy dippy or woo woo, whatever you want to call it. They're available. And so people are being offered more choice, and we are seeing it more in the mainstream. And I think that kind of gives us the some optimism, that things are going to change for the better, and maybe we'll do a whole, kind of 360 and come right back to it.
I think the mentality is definitely here to stay, because in the 80s it was around, but it was like super niche. It was just like, if you did that stuff, you were still classed as kind of a bit crazy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Whereas now it is much more. I mean, look, there's homeopathy in boots. It's like it's totally different. It's a totally different way, and I don't see it kind of going back from there. And that's what's really amazing. And I think it's also really important that women are encouraged to actually feel their own intuition, intuition with their body. Like, obviously I talk to mothers about things, you can read books, but I think I always say to mothers, like, tune into yourself. Like, you've got like the greatest source of wisdom within yourself. You have a relationship with your baby for 9 months. Your baby more than more than anyone, more than any book, more than anything I can say. I can guide mothers in certain ways, but it's like, it's really important to feel that you really embrace that inner power, that inner knowledge, like what you truly feel. Because a mother knows before their baby's going to wake, in the night often. And that, and it's just like, there's such a strong connection, especially, in those early months. And it's such a beautiful thing. So I'm just like going, do acknowledge it, and don't feel fearful that you always have to ask someone else, that, there is a lot within you.
Yeah. And I think that in itself is powerful. A woman who might not have known that, just simply being told, check in with your body. What's your body telling you? Close your eyes, take a breath, check in with your body. What are you feeling? You can trust your intuition. And I think maybe we've come so far from that we forget that we can do that. And perhaps a woman who wasn't aware that was even a possibility, that is just, going to follow, right, you're going to be induced now, and this is what you're going to do, and this is what you're going to do, and this is what you're going to have, can now actually check in with her body, trust her intuition, and be guided, by her body, by her baby, by people like you. And I think that in itself, just knowing you can trust your intuition and that it's there for a reason, that's powerful. I think a lot of women don't even know that that's, allowed.
Yes. And so I say, when I'm saying, about, the having the thyroid or your ferritin check postpartum, I was just like going, these are very logical things. Like, if you don't feel right, it's okay for you to go and ask it, because I think the mentality before was like, oh no, I can't possibly ask for anything. And it's like, it's okay to go and ask. It's okay to say, like, you know, it's normal, these are normal things that I should have checked. So I think women will be asking for these things, and I think everyone would be much happier.
Do you think that's kind of like a British thing as well? Because so my family are Israeli, and they're quite forthcoming, and if they want something, they'll ask. And I was brought up like that, you know. Yeah. If something isn't okay, you say it, or, you know, if you want something, you ask for it. Whereas then I observe people, British people particularly, you know, in hospital settings, if something's wrong, they won't ask a nurse or ask for some help, you know, very rarely. And it's like, it's okay, you can ask. And
I think it is a very British thing.
That's a cultural thing or not. Yeah. And we have to kind of get better at learning how to ask for what we need and what we deserve.
Yeah. And I think there's definitely a time for women feeling empowered, you know, for what they feel they need during the pregnancy and postpartum journey. And I think that's why a lot of people are turning, you know, like you turned to finding other methodology and other ways to, alternative things to support your system. I think that's happening more and more with everyone. And I think that's then developing through to the baby's health as well. Mothers are kind of looking, you know, if their tummies are upset, you know, kind of that there's not just, you know, other, you know, standard cow formulas. You can have a goat formula, you know. It's like there are lots of other alternatives, and I think there is a lot of empowerment going on, that there are choices, and I think it's a good time. It's a good time for motherhood.
Yeah. So we can kind of use that as a positive instead of kind of focusing on, you know, the COVID stuff has made it a difficult time for motherhood, but there is also so much that, you know, just say all this COVID stuff was happening even 10 years ago, things would have been a lot more difficult. Now we have choices, we have options, there is support out there.
Yeah.
I wonder, what sort of things do women say to you that have helped them the most with what you offer? Maybe things that perhaps they didn't know about before.
I think it's almost having a space where they know that they will be given the information they need at the point that they need it. Because I think there's Dr. Google, and there's like so much information out there, and everything's contradicting one thing to another. And you just women just often don't know where to start or what's actually a good source of information. Because obviously with the internet and things like that, it's great that there's so much out there, but it's sometimes difficult to decipher what's good information and not so helpful information. So mothers come to me knowing that they're going to get what they need at that point, whether it's information, whether it's nutrition, whether it's advising on functional testing, whether it, you know, obviously I'm focusing more on that at the moment during COVID, when I can't see as many mothers face to face. But then when they see me, you know, in person, then there's the body work, which is really, you know, it's kind of energetics along with lymph drainage and things. So it's about preparing the body. It's about the body feeling ready. And so that's how I work. It's about the preparation, you know, for birth. It's not just, you know, a massage rub. It's something that's got a kind of a bit more substance to it. And mothers feel it. Mothers feel the difference with their digestion. You know, there's a lot of focus obviously on the digestion, because when your digestion is working optimally, all the other functions of your systems of your body are functioning so much better. And when you think logistically, you know, your baby's inhabiting the space where your intestines are, you want those things to be working optimally as well.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you said that it's kind of the most important thing was the knowledge you offer, because I find that as well, and just generally in life, you know. And if I've had clients, the thing that I think people always say to me is the information that we offer them, that lasts a lifetime, and that can help them make decisions that will change the course of something that could have gone very differently. So that's going to last longer than, you know, as amazing as the massages are and the yoga and all these things. Really, it's the knowledge, I think, that empowers us more than anything. And that for me, you know, like I said, the thing that helped my birth, both my births the most, you know, I did all the yoga, I did the spinning babies and the massages, and I had acupuncture, and all those things were amazing. But the thing that did it for me was the mindset, because of learning hypnobirthing and because of reading those books that changed my perspective, or that solidified this perspective that I already had but didn't know where it came from, of my body can do this. And so what about postpartum? Because, you know, like we've touched on, it's such a challenging time. And, you know, perhaps even more so than the birth, because it just continues until one day, however many years later, or, you know, some people months later, you feel okay. But what things would you say help women feel more supported? And, you know, for women listening right now, what are the things they can do to make sure they feel supported to get through those postpartum months or years?
I always say to my mothers, like, if someone's going, I mean, obviously there's less visiting now, but I'm like, if somebody's going to come and see you, they have to bring you some food. They've got to do something that's really useful.
That is so important.
I'm like, let them come and feed you. Let them come and be helpful. I went, if it's just to kind of go, oh, the baby's really cute, you know, it's not really helpful. Like, if you're going to have someone, you know, let everyone know that I really need support at this time, and not to be afraid, like going, I need some help, you know, or like, I think if you have someone that you really trust, if they can come and, you know, be with a baby for a few hours. You know, I had one friend, one of my closest friends, when she had her baby, who's my godson, her husband was a DJ and he had to go away, like when baby was only a few weeks postpartum. So I went and I stayed with her and I gave her a night's sleep. So I was like, you know, it's things like that. It's just like, what does a mother need? And it's not just about going and visiting the baby.
Another personalized blanket.
No, the mother needs the support, so the mother can support the baby, because the baby just wants, you know, the mummy. At that point, they want the care, they want to be, because they have the strongest bond with, and they need the mother to feel supported and feel strong, and that's what they need. So I'm just like, always about the support. I think in the States they've got, I can't remember what the systems are called, but they've got things where you can, instead of just like a usual baby shower gifts, you can have like a registry of food, so the mother will have food delivered to her.
Oh god, that's so American.
Or have treatments, or like have you know, postpartum treatments and support. So it's kind of very much focused on that, which I think is like amazing, because I think
is amazing. I need to find these companies.
I just think that would be so much better. I think a mother needs so much support postpartum, and that's when I go and see mothers postpartum and I do treatments for them, I will have, you know, one hand on the mummy and one hand on the baby's tummy, because I'm just like going, okay, you need to relax, you know, the baby's okay. And so we kind of work together, the three, you know, it'd be like the three of us working together. And I often treat, you know, obviously, and then for the partners, obviously it's a big change for them, so I often end up treating the whole family unit. So it's almost like they're becoming one unit, because you need to take, you know, after birth, it's like an outer body experience, you know, for a mother. And it's just to kind of bring back and center the energy, center the endocrine system, so she just feels kind of grounded again, and kind of like feels that she's held in a space to kind of move forward. So and just kind of give it, you know, like I've talked about the endocrine system, it's the thing I bash on about the most, because I just think it's so important for, you know, women's hormones, and, you know, it's the backbone of how we function.
What are the top things we can do to support our endocrine systems? Because I'm very passionate about this as well.
So I think it's always about making sure that you have your thyroid checked, about eating foods that are right for the thyroid. So, you know, seaweeds, like again in Korea the standard thing was postpartum you'd have kombu in the broths, you know, for the iodine, for the thyroid. There are different herbs, but you have to be very careful postpartum because of breastfeeding, you know, if you're breastfeeding, that is. So a really simple thing is I always get mothers to have broths, you know, with the sprinkling of seaweed. There's a great brand called Mara, and they do a powdered seaweed that's really inoffensive, because, you know, some, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Some of them are super offensive, yeah.
Yeah, and they're really quite gross. And so you don't really want to be having something that doesn't taste nice. So I'm always about kind of like, how can we make this work so you enjoy the things that are nourishing the body? Right. And also resting.
I'll make sure to link that in the show notes, because I think people will be interested in getting that information. Yeah.
And also the resting, you know, in those early weeks, that affects the endocrine system so much. And it's about kind of not feeling like you've got to rush to get back to normal, that this is really a healing time, that if you kind of spend the first 6 weeks just resting and nourishing yourself and not trying to rush, that in itself, that helps balance the endocrine system. When you're trying to kind of push yourself, your adrenals are on overdrive postpartum, and that energy is really for you and your baby. That energy is to get you through. It's not really like an energy to be spent kind of doing loads of other things. So if you bank that energy, then when there's a big shift of hormones at 6 weeks, the adjustment is, I always say, it's like the gear change is a lot smoother. Whereas if you've kind of really burnt your energy in those first 6 weeks, it's a much tougher transition into the next part of your hormonal journey. So rest is the biggest thing, which is difficult with a new baby.
It is. Do you know what? My sister, who lives in Israel, she just had twins. Well, they've just turned 3 months.
Oh, wow.
And I can't believe it. And I still haven't been able to see them, which is heartbreaking. But because of everything that was going on, her husband has been at home and they've had nowhere to go. So although they've had twins, which is bloody hard, she's been okay, I mean, granted, that's her anyway, and she's just got on with it, and she's breastfeeding them, and she's doing amazing, and I'm so proud of her. But the fact that she's been able to rest, I mean, she has an amazing mother-in-law who lives really nearby and cooks for her every day.
Great.
Which helps. But yeah, she's had that rest, and I think that helps so much. But because those early days are also so special, we shouldn't talk about them. A lot of people talk about it like, oh God, those newborn days, it's so hard. But as hard as it was, they were also my favourite days. It's so special. You're bonding with your baby. You're sitting there resting. Like for me, I have the memories of sitting there, feeding the baby, watching box sets, everything being really calm and peaceful. And even though I was exhausted, everything felt like I was in my bubble, I loved those early days as hard as they were. So I think with the right support in place, you can enjoy that and really kind of allow for that 4th trimester to unfold how it's meant to.
Yeah, I have mothers saying at the moment who've had their 3rd babies during a lockdown, and they're just like, this has been their favourite postpartum period, because they've said that they didn't feel that they had to be doing as much, and they've been able to be quieter, and they said that they felt, I mean, obviously this is not the experience for everybody, but a lot have said that they felt much more peaceful, that it was being much calmer.
Even with their 2 older children running around and not being able to be at school.
They've had they've been lucky. They've had family who've kind of popped in to kind of be a bit of support, and their partners have been supportive. But they found, even with that, they found that that's calm. But again, this is not everybody. Other people's experiences could be very, very different.
Yeah, of course. I wonder if you have a recommended self-care ritual, morning routine that you recommend to expectant mothers.
I just always say to mothers to kind of keep it simple, because I think there can be so much of a pressure that they've got to do lots of things. And I just even say, doing a visualization, I have mothers who kind of go, when they were going into the city on the tube, but it's just like even listening to like a birth visualization or a meditation or something like that. I just find something to integrate in what you're doing that's practical, that they don't feel, I think sometimes people feel pressured if they had to take time, make an additional time, because everyone feels quite short on time. So I'm just like going, well, try and integrate this in when you're doing something. If you really can't be totally still, just listen to something.
Yeah. Or just take kind of 10 minutes to connect with the baby in some way.
Oh, yeah. So postpartum, yeah. And I just sometimes...
No, I mean when you're pregnant.
Yeah. And like sometimes with mothers, like when they have other children, they're like going, oh my God, I just like that you don't have time to do anything. I don't have time to do the yoga. And I'm just like, go. And then I just say, okay, if the only time is when you actually go to the loo, just like sit on the loo for a few minutes and just breathe. Like if it's the 3 minutes, and if that's it. And I said, just acknowledge it, just tune in for those 3 minutes. And I was just like, and that's doable. Because, when you're a first time mummy, you have more time. With other children, there's not always.
Yeah. And speaking of sitting on the loo, one of the things I was told was to raise your legs. So put a stool, like the kids' stools that they use to stand up to go to the toilet. Put that under your feet and go to the toilet like that, because that is a great positioning, especially when you're pregnant. Yeah,
they have a special stool in the States. I think they call it squatty potty or something like that.
Yes,
they have
I've
a
heard
special
of that.
stool.
So funny.
Yeah, so actually it's how you should be. It kind of rearranges your intestines how they should be. So it's actually much more comfortable. So yes. that's a very helpful
Yeah.
thing to do.
Awesome. And you have a small range of aromatherapy products for
Yes.
expectant mothers.
Yes, I mean, they're more on, I have a few on my website, but it's more kind of, I also do a lot of bespoke kind of prescriptive remedies. So as a clinical aromatherapist, I then blend oils and formulations, you know, depending on what somebody needs. You know, some people obviously have got nut allergies, so I'm obviously very careful with what oils I use. So everything is done, you know, with very considered to each person's needs. But I have to say, the one oil that I think is really not kind of publicized enough, is really amazing for birth, is lemon oil. I found that when I used to go with mothers to and they've even done a clinical study that it's really helpful for morning sickness. And I found that mothers, when they were in labor, that the scent of the lemon oil really helped to clear their heads, because it's known as a cephalic, so it's very mind clearing. And it, you know, when something felt quite intense or maybe a little overwhelming, just to be able to breathe that in was actually more helpful than a clary sage, which is obviously works on the uterus. It works on it in a totally different way. But yeah, lemon oil is a
really
good one.
interesting. I didn't use lemon oil in labour. I use lemon oil most mornings, actually.
Yeah.
I didn't use it in labour. My husband just kind of we were diffusing all different oils throughout my labour. I've actually got an article on my website about essential oils for labour and birth. But
yeah,
my husband would just kind of rub some lavender on his hand and just put it under my nose. And I just found that in itself was really helpful.
Yeah, it's just kind of it's quite centering. The lavender and lemon are actually really good together as well. So the lavender is like, you know, super calming. So yeah, I find that oil is really powerful for labour, because it's about creating your own nest. When I have some mothers and then you know, they're going to have a hospital birth and they're like going, oh, you know, I was thinking I was going to have a home birth, but I'm going to have a hospital birth. I'm like going, you are your own birth unit. You know, you can create your own space. You know, you take everything in with you. You know, even if you don't have a diffuser, you don't have time to do anything, you can just get the oils and flick them around the room.
Yeah.
You know, if your partner can just boil, you know, run hot water into the basin, then the ceramic's warm, and then you just flick oils in the sink, rub it on all over the sheets. So I'm just like, you know, there's nothing worse like if you're in a hospital and then you kind of lean over, then, you know, the scent of the hospital. So I always encourage mothers that during their pregnancy, when they're listening to their hypnobirthing, to kind of build up a scent profile of things that kind of make them feel good, that so when they go into labour, that then can use the same oils, that is their safe place, that they've created their safe place. It's like, you know, it's like that animal kingdom. They would kind of use scent to kind of find where is safe for them to deliver. And we've obviously still got that in our own psyche. You know, we're still, you know, have that animal instinct. And so when you kind of smell something that feels safe or familiar, again, your body relaxes. And it's about always kind of creating those profiles, about making you feel relaxed, having the things from home that make you feel really safe in your birth room.
I love all that. So much great information that I know that women listening to this are going to really benefit from. So as I told you before we recorded, I end every show with a little segment called All About You. And it's just a fun way for the listeners to get to know the guest a bit more. So without further ado, if you could tell all pregnant women one thing, what would it be?
It's probably what I said before. It's like, trust your own intuition. I think that's the most important. Feel empowered by tuning into your own intuition with you and your baby.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. If you could make one change in antenatal care in this country, what would it be?
I think there would be so many things, but I just think there just generally needs to be a lot more care put back into, and I think it was there. I just think if there more care can be put into pregnancy and postpartum in every aspect, so a woman feels supported, I just think it would be an amazing thing. It's quite broad. Yeah. Be more Swedish.
Be more Swedish, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a good ethos to go by in life generally. Be more Swedish.
Yeah, be more Swedish.
Okay, what profession other than your own would you like to try?
What profession? Well, I studied photography and printmaking as part of my degree. So I'm very much in love with the arts as well as what I do. So It'd probably be something in the
Nice.
arts.
Nice. What's your favourite way of treating yourself?
Well, I love having treatments myself. So I regularly have different massage treatments. I have 5 elements acupuncture. I see a shamanic healer as
Oh,
well. So obviously looking after my energetics when I'm working with mothers and babies too. So yeah, I do a lot.
I actually get a lot of people asking me about shamanic healing. Can you share the details of your shaman?
I'm afraid I can't.
You can't.
She's fully booked.
They're private as well. They're very private people, which is nice.
Yeah. She's an amazing lady. She's an amazing lady. A very strong, kind of Viking kind of quality to her.
Wow. Okay. Best thing that happened to you this month?
Best thing that happened to me this month. I think it's just I love being in nature, and I think actually probably meeting the new baby. I met one of the new babies that I treated the mother during pregnancy. So that's really,
that's
I think
special.
during this time, I think it's really special to meet the new souls that have come in who are so incredibly wise and bring so much hope and love. Yeah.
That's gorgeous. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so if people would like to book a session with you or speak to you, where are you at? Where can they find you? Where can they follow you? How can they speak to you?
So they can go to my website, which is mymama.org, and there's information there, and you can email me from there.
Awesome. Are you on any of the socials?
I am on Instagram as well. You can get to that through my website too. That hasn't been as active, but it will be being more active over the next coming months.
It's a bit of pressure, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I've just been busy with the mothers and babies and not having so much time to do those kind of things. But it's kind of making time to reach new audiences and kind of share information with the people who aren't able to come and see me. So it's about giving out as much as I can.
That's lovely. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge, which I'm sure a lot of people are going to have benefited from. And we will link all your details and everything you've just said in the show notes. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. The Reconditioned podcast is proud to support Solace Women's Aid, who supports survivors of domestic abuse and sexual violence, working with over 27,000 people each year to build safe lives and strong futures.